It's like a Sharknado, except with poop.
I'm not happy.
So no doubt Melvin Capital is in a lot of pain.
There will be carnage, I can guarantee you.
They're starting to have to unwind their longs in order to pay for the pain that they are seeing in these other short positions that are getting absolutely crushed.
It is a corrupt system.
A casino-like atmosphere.
But when they all come to get out of that movie theater because somebody yelled fire, that door is only so big.
Now it's almost become this risk that if you're publicly coming out as a hedge fund and disclosing the stocks that you're against, as one trader, as one Twitter user put it, you're at risk of getting Melvined.
The reason the market is doing what it's doing is people are sitting at home getting the checks from the government.
Grandma and the little guy have all banded together into a big group, and they've done this to the stocks.
It's just a way of attacking wealthy people.
The authorities, should they step in?
You know, you have these massive bailouts. You have the Federal Reserve pumping money into failing banks and corporations. And then, I don't know, how many segments did CNBC do to talk about how the market is manipulated by these very companies and banks?
This fair share is a bullshit concept.
Ban social networks to talk about buying short stocks.
There's a number of different ways that the stock market is manipulated or, artificially moved in one direction or another. I generally think that almost all of it is absolute BS.
It is a corrupt system.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. All right, so we got a good show for y'all today. So things are kind of going a little differently than normal, differently than usual. It's because everything's all messed up, and it's my fault. It's all right though. It's gonna be a fun show. So I'm gonna be doing something that's very, very strange. That is something that we haven't done before. Yes, I'm going to have a guest on, but it's almost, so we're going to be talking to Vaush. So that's interesting. That's really cool in itself, and very interesting. But also it's going to be simulcast on his stream. Why Skype? Because I show videos. So like I use Skype to show videos. I haven't found out Discord. If Discord actually would allow sound effects to go through, then I would absolutely use Discord. But unfortunately, Skype is the only one I figured out that works. Zoom also works, but only sometimes. And so that's sort of the answer to that one. But I should probably talk to him, and tell him in person in a couple of minutes. But all right. So what we're gonna do is, if everything goes well, we've got a couple of videos. We've got Don Jr. Making some mistakes. Apparently, he forgot who the governor of Texas is. We got Ben Shapiro talking about Flying Ted. We got Republicans, using cancel culture. We got PS5 scalpers, and we got some. We got states that are going after trans people. So here we go again. Oh wow, 300K viewers. Jesus. That's a lot. That's a lot of viewers. So look. So Vaush is a controversial figure. I haven't really I don't have a problem with him because of what he does. He brings in people from the alt-right to the left. I don't see why anybody thinks that they're anti-left messages, but we'll get him on the show, and he's going to be here in a couple of minutes, and so maybe we can ask about that. So but don't worry, we've got a lot of stories. We got things that we're going to talk about here. It should be an absolute fun time. So stick around. Trust me. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. All right. So let me just get all this stuff. Again, we're doing it live. We're doing it live, folks. Okay. So if it looks a little scuffed, that's why we're doing it live. We're doing it live, folks. All right. Destiny plus his chat refuses to forgive him. Yeah, there's drama there. I'm not really familiar with said drama. But what I try to do is I try to stay away from lefty host drama. I got involved in that once, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really help anything. It doesn't really do anything. Yeah, there's of course space for calling out bad actors. And sure, that's certainly a valid thing that you should be doing. You should absolutely be calling out bad actors. But a lot of the stuff is just, we disagree on a very small percentage of, for example, procedural stuff or tactical stuff. And that for some reason causes people to jump up down each other's throats and then, accusations of grifter, paid shill, neoliberal. It's just, it doesn't help. It doesn't help anything. When in reality, look, we have an enemy. We have several, in fact. We have the right wing, obviously, the far right, and we have the establishment. I mean, those are the two things that we really should be focusing on defeating: the establishment and the far right. So I try not to get distracted by this stuff. So, with that said, let me bring in our guest here. Let's do it. Oh shit. Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing wonderfully. Want me to turn on video?
Yeah. It's gonna do this weird.
There
there you go. Hey.
Welcome
to the show, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So I was just telling my audience, lefty host drama. It's kind of an interesting time to kind of come in with lefty hosts fighting each other over things they're fairly small differences. Things like tactical disagreements or procedural disagreements, and how the focus. I think the left kind of eats itself and fights itself, and that's not saying that we shouldn't be calling out the grifty left. We absolutely should be, but I think there's a big disconnect between a lot of lefty hosts, and there's this penchant to kind of circular firing squad, which does empower the fash.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
okay, we're just jumping right into the topic. Yeah, okay. So my issue.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, my issue here is not necessarily tactical disagreements. I do think the circular firing squad is a problem. I think that I participate and have been subjected to it to varying extents. My issue is I feel like the way in which some online leftists, content creators, whatever, hosts, engage in the production of their content leads lefties down a very, very bad and ineffective road politically.
Sure.
So take, for example, force the vote, okay? Now, I think that if you actually spend 5 minutes to think about it, the force the vote issue is rather silly. If you actually think okay, so what happens if they can't get the votes for Pelosi? Well, they're never going to be able to get the votes for anybody else. So we vote again, and then we vote again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and eventually Pelosi will come through, because at this point, the Justice Dems are holding up the process and incurring a lot of political ire. So whatever, bad idea, fine. But then there are people in the Force the Vote crew who are screaming and screaming about how this is them trying to get people health care, and this is, if you disagree, then you're in the way, and they're holding AOC to account. This was the promise that she made when she was elected. And it's like, man, you never cared about the process here. This was always just an attempt at getting eyes on you as you distinguish yourself from like the progressive left.
Yeah, and look, we know that the whole Force the Vote thing was pushed by the Movement for the People's Party in order to try to take, Democrats from the Democratic Party and herd them over to the Movement for the People's Party. Like, we know that. Like, we've seen their seats. And so that's really what the movement's been about. But you're right to call out and to talk about some of the lefty hosts who might be doing it disingenuously. And I don't know if all of them are. I'm certainly some of them are, and some of them might just not be, knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah, you can never really, or you can't always know if a person is actually grifting. Yes. I generally find the accusations of grifting, and this is my fault as well, tend to be pretty unproductive. Because you're not actually arguing about the issues at hand. You're arguing about the extent to which people actually believe in them. I don't know if people are grifting. Grifting isn't necessarily my issue, but the optics of grifting might be. So when you have people who are like building a platform that is based around their belief that everyone else is doing everything else wrong and they're all bad, but you should watch me and you should listen to me and you should diverge yourself from the rest of the left and give me money and participate in my events. And it feels like it's a project of building personality cults at that point. And we're not talking about coordination. We're not talking about working together on any of these issues. And at that point, it feels like they're just pulling people away from the actual left. And then it's no longer a circular firing squad.
Right. And there is that issue with, and I found this personally, where you have, this is a very competitive like media space, right? And so what we don't do that the right wing does is the right wing, of course, all kind of consolidates in a block and promotes each other and lifts each other up, and does a lot of cross-pollination or cross-pollination. Sorry,
wouldn't it be cool if we did that?
It would be fantastic. Which is what one of the things that I've been trying to do over the past few years is to do more of that, which is why I reach out to people. And yeah, sometimes it ends up being a little bit of a circle jerk when we have these conversations, but I think it's important that we, boost each other up. And so that gives us a bonus of fighting against fascists, of course, who are all a block. And then also gives us a big advantage over the grifters as well. And I don't know why, but it's like, it looks like you're having a seizure.
Yes, that's Skype. It did this before when I was in the Drunken Peasants. I don't know why Skype dislikes my camera so much, but I updated the program, so I don't know why. Yeah.
I am sorry about the choice of using Skype. If Discord would actually be able to do sounds, which by the way, I do need to set that up. This wasn't even one of the segments that I was looking to talk about. Is this something that I was doing, to kind of talk about things before you came on? I actually wanted to do some segments about, Donald Trump Jr., for example. So it is interesting. You're live on your audience, right?
Yes.
Okay. So hi, Vaush's audience. Y'all are pretty cool, or at least most of you.
Well, wait. Introduce yourself properly. By the way, you got right into it. You didn't even. I
dive right in. This is my bread and butter. I can't help it. I'm Jeff Waldorf. I do a show. I'm part of the Young Turks Network. So I'm one of the independent contractors. So I'm the small guy that nobody's ever heard of. Hence, the need for a little bit of promotion. I have spent like the last 4 years dunking on Donald Trump and Republicans, and of course, corporate Democrats as well. So, I like to focus on the big problem of fighting fascism and fighting the right, but also, of course, trying to fairly take on, the corporate Democrats and, how they also tend to be an impediment to more broad progressive change. A small progressive change they seem to be okay with here and there, incrementalism. But I think we're at a point where we need a little bit more than just incrementalism when it comes to things like climate change, healthcare, et cetera, things like that. So I do try to challenge them on that as fairly as I can. And of course, we can't get everything right, you know. As you were mentioning, because I was watching your streamer earlier, and you know, you did point out how like you have a hard time trusting stuff that's said by the online left, and I can definitely understand that tweet that you were talking about earlier with Ted Cruz, which was an obvious fake. A lot of libs, a lot of leftists. I mean, we kind of fell into that, and we got to be more careful to vet our sources. And I've made my own mistakes as well on that, and I think we all have in this space.
Well, yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah.
Maybe more so yourself, though. No, you've been doing this longer than I have.
I have. I've been doing this since 2015. So actually, we was doing panels as early as 2013. Which, by the way, I've done regular panels arguing against somebody that you may have run into a couple of times. Actual Justice Warrior.
Oh yeah, no, we're good friends, you know.
Actually, there is a picture. There's a picture of he and I actually floating around. I went to this Minds thing, IRL, whatever, in New Jersey to do debate panels, because they were hurting for lefties. Okay, and so they flew me out there, and I did a debate panel, and I forget who I was debating against. But it was fun, actually. It was fun doing those debates.
I've been invited to those Minds thing a couple of times, but because of the pandemic, I haven't had the pleasure.
Oh yeah, no, they're fun. You know, you're like your debate bro, and so, you know, I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't it's not like
it's not a slur. You can use it. You can use it with the hard D. You know.
But you know, hey, I figured that that'd be something that you might be interested in doing. So they are fun, and I definitely recommend it. Mainly because, I mean, there's a lot of targets of opportunity. I think the last one I was at was Lauren Chen was there, so that's when they were talking about immigration.
Yeah, I'll take any opportunity to meet these people in an alleyway after the pandemic is done. Obviously,
of course.
I got to be responsible to the fine people I live in. I think Destiny went recently to one of these, and he debated Milo Yiannopoulos, but in that case, it felt almost like resurrecting a corpse. So so depending relevance.
He got banned from Parler again.
Yeah, because he was threatening to give out like Ben Shapiro's cell phone number or something like that.
What? Free speech? Whatever happened to free speech?
Honestly, you'd think you'd get that from Parler if nothing else, but apparently not.
No free speech on Parler. All right, so the things I actually wanted to talk about, and I'm sorry for the retread, but I wanted to talk about flying crews. Don Jr., I've got a couple of videos to show you on that. Maybe a little bit of GOP cancel culture. You got Republicans canceling each other, which is hilarious. There's a trans story. We've got, hate groups that are behind a rash of new anti-trans bills. I want to talk about that. And then maybe PS5 scalpers. They feel like they're being treated unfairly, Vaush.
Okay. Well, bring me in. We'll see what we can get to.
All right. So, again, it's going to be a little weird because I try to cut these up into clips and segments and stuff. So I like to do a little bit of an introduction. If you don't mind me kind of taking over your show for the next hour.
No, go for it. Feel free to lead. I'm a switch.
All right, cool. Get you over here on the little screen here. The dumb off contest continues between members of the Trump clan. With Don Jr. making this latest entry.
They're trying to, cancel him. He took a family vacation. Now, obviously, we understand sometimes, the optics of that right now isn't ideal. But in the grand scheme of things, he's a senator. He doesn't manage crises in states. That's a governor's job. He's a federal employee. They mostly vote on things. So, I'm not going to jump on this bandwagon of trying to cancel the guy for taking his kids on a vacation. It's totally ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. They should focus on the things that matter. They should focus on people in power who could actually affect change in a crisis, not people who work and legislate from D.C. Doesn't make sense. It's a double standard we'll always have to live up to. But let's be real. I'm happy to call out someone, even the people on our side, if they screw up. But honestly, in my opinion, this is not one of those times.
All right, so before I get you in here, in a tweet, he also said the hypocrisy of those trying to cancel Ted Cruz, who've been totally silent on their Democrat governor's incompetence, is telling. My thoughts on the Cancun cruise faux outrage is fake. Cancelgate is fake. Those wily Democrats, how dare they mess up so badly with their incompetence? So this got a lot of outrage on Twitter, right? So
I'm not really appreciating this until having not seen the video along with the voice, but he really does sound like Kermit the Frog.
True.
Not quite as much as Peterson, but he's in the ballpark, you know?
Yeah, it's bad, and the guy's probably coked up. But look, a lot of people were like, you realize that Greg Abbott is the governor of Texas. So now you could take this a couple of ways, right? So you could take it like the nuanced approach is, he didn't necessarily say that it was Texas's governor that messed up. But, he didn't also not say it. So we're going to dunk on him anyway.
Well, I mean, I feel like the Republican Party, especially lately, has been treating their governors kind of disposable. Trump's kind of set that precedent, I think, especially with the way he treated the governor of Georgia, where like they know that at like a state level, they don't need to cooperate that much because the governor has absolutely no choice but to go along with whatever abuse they receive. If they don't suck up to it, then somebody else will take their place. But it doesn't actually seem to affect the political alignment of the people who voted in that Republican governor. So you can shit talk the governor all you want, as long as you keep eyes away from Ted Cruz, because he narrowly won his 2018 Senate seat. And he actually is something they care about protecting.
Yeah, that's true. So they can keep as many people as they can in the Senate. So now there are some major problems going on in Texas, though, that you can absolutely blame the governor for. For example, Texas has and as well as the Texas legislature, they have a partly deregulated or mostly deregulated electricity market. Okay, they chose not to provide power companies, this according to the New York Times, with incentives to install reserve capacity to deal with possible emergencies. This made the power cheaper in normal times, which, hey, it's great. Cheaper power, who doesn't like that, right? But also left the system vulnerable to these wild swings when you have emergencies. So, I feel like having more federal regulations, the federal regulations that they made their own power grid to get away from would have actually stopped some of these insane price spikes. You've seen the story about Griddy, right?
Well, I've heard about like electricity being charged like $1,000 per kilowatt hour or something like that. Like some absurdly high price.
It's worse. Before the storm, it was about 20 kilowatts per hour. It went over $9,000. It's over $9,000, Vaush.
At least that'll delight some of the weebs in the state. I mean, they've got that going for them. But this is what happens when you deregulate, One of the problem is that riding high 10 years and then having one crash can be all it takes to end a person's life. Even if it incurs some higher costs in the long run, there's a benefit to stability. It's basically like the civic infrastructure equivalent of having health insurance, You pay out your premium, sure, but if you ever need to go to the hospital, it's not going to bankrupt you, ideally.
Right. And it's not going to leave millions of people without heat, water, and the ability to, of course, cook food, which, is also, you kind of need food to survive, I hear, it's good to have. It's good to have. So now, after all this happened, of course, you've also probably seen the reports of numerous right-wing individuals blaming this entire thing on alternative energy, on wind power. Right, and wind
turbines. It'll work too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's important to point out that Texas's energy mix is 90% traditional thermal energy sources. You got oil and natural gas, and so it's only about 7% wind power, 3% mix of solar, geothermal, and other energy sources. And so, I mean, it's pretty clear that there was a big failure in the traditional energy sources as well. Yes, there were wind turbines that froze over. and seized up and wouldn't work and wouldn't generate. But they also had problems with gas plants not operating.
Well, it all froze over. Because whether it's a wind turbine or a natural gas plant, these institutions need to be appropriately weatherproofed, and they didn't. I think back in 2011, in fact, they explicitly rejected the opportunity to weatherize these stations in a way that could accommodate potential changes resulting from climate change.
Right, and they chose not to do it in order to keep things cheap for them, cheap for the companies, and cheap for the consumers as well, because they have an incredibly competitive energy market in Texas. But all of that, facts be damned, right? Fox News. So personalities and guests on Fox News and Fox Business blamed the Green New Deal, green energy, and all that stuff over 128 times since Monday. 128 times, dude. Mostly in opinion shows.
Green New Deal was in effect. That's crazy. I wish we lived in the world that conservatives thought we lived in. That would be unbelievable. Anytime anything bad happens, it's because of the failures of socialism. Well, I would love to be living with the failures of socialism. Please, God, subject me to those failures. I would love to see, how far we can go. But of course, no. It's the same genre as when they remember back during the BLM protests, and there'd be like a burned building or some rubble. They'd take a picture of this and they'd say, "This is Biden's America," while Trump was president. That's the vibe I get.
It's true. It's true. And so, they do all this, they do all this blame. And it turns out that no, you actually had straight news shows on Fox News, so-called straight news shows, blaming the left 48 times versus the opinion shows, which of course are Hannity, Ingram, all that, 80 times.
It'll work. It'll work. We laugh.
It will.
Okay,
It will.
you can laugh if you
It's
want,
true.
but it'll work. That's the thing. It doesn't matter. They can say whatever the hell they want. It does not matter. We can mock it as much as we want. We can deconstruct these arguments as much as we want, but their bald-facedness is the point. If they were trying to nuance their way out of an argument, actually there was a Texan Democrat governor in 1967 and he was the one who did X. If they were trying to go that direction, then it would be pretty easy to knock them down. But if they just come out and say, it was socialism and the Green New Deal and all the wind froze, the wind stopped blowing, and it is the Green New Deal. And if they just go with that, that's it. It's fine. They win.
Look, there are reports of people that believe that putting up solar panels would suck the energy out of the sun. I mean, this is okay. So I see this from Lib Twitter all the time. Okay, not only was it super classless for a lot of Lib Twitter to go after people that are freezing in Texas is some sort of gotcha, take that, Texas. What did the people in Texas do? Yes, of course, they voted for shitty politicians that abandoned them at the first chance of trouble. Of course, Ted Cruz, who flew to Cancun while everybody's freezing. But this is not a good thing to do, to sit there and laugh at them. What we need is, empathy. What we need is to actually take care of people. Yes, even if they vote against socialism, they believe all these crazy things, you shouldn't abandon them. We're supposed to be part of the United States. We're not supposed to leave anybody hanging.
It's dumb for a million reasons. First of all, the people disproportionately affected by this are the poor. Poor people are disproportionately Democrats, also disproportionately POC, who are also disproportionately Democrats. Additionally, Republicans tend to be the greatest victims of Republican policies, okay? All the people who live in fucking Appalachia or Appalachia, or poor rural communities whose small towns are dying because of very obviously bad economic decisions being made by the Republicans they vote in. They're the ones who are the victims of this first and foremost. Well, we all are, but them too. If you actually want, I will never learn how to pronounce Appalachian properly. Chat, you can correct me as much as you want. I refuse to learn. I'll never do it. Anyway, all that aside, I mean, even if you leave aside the empathy angle, the fact remains that if you're a Republican in Texas and you're freezing to death, and and all you see on Twitter is liberals mocking you for your stupidity, because Texan Republicans weren't voting for Republicans because of the fucking energy grid. I'd be willing to bet most Texans don't even know, or didn't even know, that they were on a separate grid, because that decision was made nearly a century ago. This probably is not a day-to-day thing that they talk about or vote based on. So they're being mocked for a decision they had no hand in, based on policies they didn't know existed. Where are they going to go after this? You think you're going to make them libs by mocking them this way? No, they're going to double down. They're going to say, fuck it, I was nearly dead last year. And these fucking liberals on Twitter were just making fun of me for it. It's just terrible. It's bad optics. It's bad politics. It's bad morally. It's everything. It's just bad.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. That's absolutely correct. It's bad.
Yeah, Republican voters vote based on guns, abortion, and immigration. Okay, they're not voting. They're not voting based on Texan power grid independence.
Also, transgender bathrooms. They
and transgender bathrooms. That's a big one.
Oh yeah. So let's go on to the next one. It's pretty related. We're gonna go to Ben Shapiro. Fun times, right?
Yeah. Hit me.
Senator Ted Cruz was recently busted going on vacation to Cancun, while millions of residents in the state struggled without power, heat, and even food as a result, of course, a devastating winter storm and a deregulated power grid that wasn't even prepared for it. So now pictures of Flying Ted, that's what I like to call him, blew up over social media, caused him to end his trip early, and he also threw his kids under the bus, which is an interesting thing to do. But then again, for somebody who has actually thrown his wife under the bus as well, and Trump and his father under the bus too, to kiss Donald Trump's boots, I'm not exactly surprised. But the backlash that Cruz received was picked up by conservatives as an example of cancel culture. Yes, good old cancel culture. And so now Ben Shapiro, he's going to react to this. He's going to talk about this on a show. Let's take a look.
But let's be real about this for just 1 second. This is one of the stupidest aspects of our politics. Like, what exactly? It's not a real-time crisis that Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, can do anything about, because the senator from Texas is, in fact, in the United States Senate. He's a federal officer, right? He's a federal elected official. This is up to the mayor of Houston and, like, the governor of Texas and all the people who are state-level officials. And also, I just wonder, what is Ted Cruz, like, did they expect Ted to go there with, like, a blowtorch and start defrosting all of the pipelines? He can do what Beto O'Rourke does, and he can tweet out a bunch of links to people who are helping out. I'm sure Ted's already done that. But the notion that the gravest of all sins is that you took your family to a place that is not Texas in the middle of a bad situation in Texas. My favorite part of this is all the journalists in their heated apartments in New York who are tweeting angrily about all of this. I can't believe Ted Cruz would do something like this. Oh, yeah. I see you there on the ground handing out food. Really, well done there. Really, really well done.
All right.
Very high IQ arguments.
Indeed. So look, before I hand it off to you, for me, I think that the anger against Cruz, and I think that's justified anger, right, is that he was able to leave Texas. He had the means to do it, right? So he had the means to take his family someplace warm, okay, when they lost power, while many Texans did not have the ability to do so. And they were, a lot of people ended up having to try to stay warm by using their cars, which of course can be dangerous. In fact, in one night, Houston actually reported about 300 different cases of carbon monoxide poisoning, several of which ended up being fatal. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the level of desperation that has been happening in Texas. And so with Cruz fleeing the state, essentially, to go to someplace warm, it sends a pretty bad message. Like, when the going gets tough, Ted Cruz and the rest of the affluent, Texans or affluent Americans, they leave. You're on your own, sir.
Well, for me, the real harm here, I think, well, I don't necessarily know if it's harm. This is really just a politics game. Would Ted Cruz have been on the ground, like, feeding soup to the homeless if he hadn't gone to Cancun? Probably not. I think the real reason why this is important is because it demonstrates the utter fucking contempt that Ted Cruz has for his population. No sane person, no public servant with their head screwed on properly could possibly think, under any circumstances, that an unprecedented crisis in their state, which has led to multiple people dying, is an appropriate time to take a vacation out of the country? No, but that's unfathomable to me. That's like unbelievable. Like I don't even know. I'm trying to find like an apt comparison. It's honestly like a joke, like it's an Onion article. So it's not so much that he's hurting people by going down to Mexico. I don't really think that's the argument. It's that he doesn't even care enough about sending a message to the people of Texas by staying in solidarity that he'd even considered that prospect. It's contempt, or at the very least, it's negligence.
Yeah, and let me just kind of add on to that point here. Speaking of like staying in solidarity, remember Rick Perry had come out, and here's what he said. He said Texans would be would be without electricity for longer than 3 days to keep the federal government out of their business. Try not to let whatever the crisis of the day is to take your eye off having a resilient grid. They keep using that word, resilient, that keeps America safe personally, economically, and strategically. So saying basically you should be happy to, you know, stay in those cold, dangerous conditions to fight socialism, essentially.
Yeah. The 2008 financial crisis, you know, you can see it on Fox News, people coming out. The American people are proud of a robust and unregulated Wall Street. And the fine people of this country would never deign to regulate. They believe that catastrophic economic collapses are a worthwhile price to pay if it means that that's the gist we're getting right now. Like, this doesn't mean shit to anyone. Even the most ardent conservatives in Texas, I doubt if I press them, they give a fuck about energy independence for Texas. I sincerely doubt they care. This is it's kind of gaslighting is what it is, right? It's just trying to convince people that they shouldn't care about their state abandoning them, their government not appropriately regulating industry, about people being left to freeze and die, that they shouldn't care about that this is a necessary price to pay for freedom. They did the same bullshit in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. You know, you don't like the war? Well, tough. This isn't actually a war. This is a conceptual battle for the very concept of American freedom.
I love the use of the word gaslighting right here, especially when we're talking about the effects of natural gas failing. It feels kind of apropos, really.
Yeah, I'd say so. Well, I mean, he literally described the grid as robust. It is clearly not robust. That is clearly not the right word to use for it.
And another thing that bothers me, energy independence. Like there is no such thing as energy independence, really. At least not on the when it comes to the oil gas market. You know what I'm saying? It gets all traded internationally. And so Texas, oil that comes out of Texas, oil that comes out of Canada, all gets traded on the world market anyway. There is no such thing as energy independence.
Right. It's regulatory independence, if anything. But I don't know, how much that's worth.
Well, it's not worth anything. I mean, ask the Texans who are freezing right now how much it's worth. I think all they care about is, staying warm and getting clean water, which, by the way, there are water boil advisories going on right now. Well, how are you going to boil your water if you don't have any energy?
That thing they did in Karate Kid where you rub your hands together real fast till the palms get warm? Yeah. Do that. Touch the bottom of the pot. Do that. Touch the bottom of the pot. Eventually, slowly but surely. You could also induce a vacuum. After all, because water wants to boil at any temperature. It's just the pressure of the atmosphere that keeps it in a liquid state. So if you could create a vacuum, then that would also...
science, friends.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
You have to get the water back. Bitch. That's the hard part.
Right. You can... And at the end of that, wax on, wax off, right? For making that Karate Kid reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wasn't that the heated technique, right? I remember the end of Karate Kid. He did the hand spinny thing, and then he wax on, then he melted through the other guy with his boiling heat hands.
Yes, and that is how we're going to single-handedly save Texas.
With the boiling heat hands.
Boiling heat hands, absolutely. So now, let me go back to them blaming things, right? On green energy. I have one more video. Okay. This is Governor Greg Abbott.
Sean, this shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America. Texas is blessed with multiple sources of energy, such as natural gas and oil and nuclear, as well as solar and wind. But you saw from what Trace said, and that is our wind and our solar got shut down, and they were collectively more than 10% of our power grid. And that thrust Texas into a situation where it was lacking power in a statewide basis. That was power that was spread out by that ERCOT organization that you were talking about. As a result, it just shows that fossil fuel is necessary for the state of Texas as well as other states to make sure that we will be able to heat our homes in the wintertime and cool our homes in the summertime.
I hate that man.
He's not my favorite guy. You know, I know a few guys, and he's not my favorite guy amongst them. Yeah,
certainly. So yeah, that's a good example of Republican governance in action, deregulation, and of course, free market capitalism.
One of the things that really bugs me about the discourse around climate change and fossil fuels is this belief that Republicans keep saying this, like America needs oil, America needs coal, America needs gas. Literally nobody is saying this elsewise, obviously. And you can ask anybody, even the craziest lefties online. Ask them, okay? If we just took all of America off of all fossil fuels day one, of course the country would collapse. Nobody's saying that. We're saying you invest in alternative energy, which is what Texas has done because Texas's wind farms contribute about a quarter of the energy that it receives. So clearly investment in alternative energy begets results, and it's Texas, you know, that's the oil state, but they still did it, and that's great. That was actually, unironically, a pretty great benefit of their separation from the federal regulation, though they could have done that with federal regulation. It's just the way things panned out. It was one of the consequences of their decision. But they always act like this, like libs trying to take away our oil. Like, fuck, we need it for driving cars at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, nobody is saying like clean break, right? But we are saying eventual break, and we should really do something. You know, I'm not one of the libs. I had this discussion yesterday with my audience about nuclear energy. I think nuclear energy has a role to play. It is cleaner than oil and gas. It's better for the environment. Although I know Fukushima, right? That is a way to get us off of fossil fuels.
We need nuclear
energy. We do need nuclear energy, right? And we also need those other alternative energies, solar and wind and geothermal, and then whatever else. I mean, I don't know if it was you or Lance from the Surfs that was talking about how what was it? Korea or something was doing South Korea had like made a fusion reactor or had a fusion reaction for like a tenth of a second or something like that, and that was like a giant breakthrough in the new tokamaks or whatever. That's interesting stuff. That I think could be the future as well.
It's really it's incredible because I feel like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island might have single-handedly fucked the planet because of all the bad optics around nuclear power. That if we had just handled 3 Mile Island, and if the fucking Soviets had appropriately handled Chernobyl, that people probably would have been completely on board with nuclear power because it is the safest form, even if you account for all the disasters that have been caused by nuclear power plant meltdowns. It pales in comparison to the total amount of damage done by fossil fuel burning. You know, if you count in like externalities too, like lung cancer or lowered lifespans due to pollution, then we're talking exponentially more destructive than anything nuclear has ever done. The only thing that people really worry about these days, I think, or should worry about, is nuclear waste. But I feel like if the international community got together and just chose a spot somewhere, I don't fucking know. It can be in Nevada, it can be in Mongolia, I don't give a shit. Just chose a spot and built a proper bunker because they always want to trade off responsibility for this. Like no country, it's a NIMBY shit. No country wants to have the stockpile of perpetually irradiated residue in their borders, you know?
Yeah. So I'm kind of having the same problem in my chat that you sometimes have in yours. Yeah. About nuclear energy. No, what was it? Somebody said, well, nuclear energy is safer than wind farms. No, we didn't say that. Neither of us believe that that's the case.
Safer than coal, though.
It is absolutely safer than coal, safer than oil, safer than building pipelines all over the place that will eventually leak and, explode sometimes and end up contaminating groundwater. And
also,
so,
it's like magic too.
Right.
Uranium is literally just like a rock that emits energy. It's like everything else is, it's like, oh, we burned through the oil. Like, oh, okay, we burned the coal. Great. We turned the turbines. Phenomenal. But then it's just like magic rock. It's, don't touch it, but it is magic.
Don't touch it. Don't lick it. Just
don't lick it.
Put it in a reactor and make it work for you, and then figure out, of course, nuclear waste, as you mentioned, is a big problem, but we can figure out how to do something about that. And of course, if we actually invest in technologies to actually figure out how to, produce energy reactions without actually creating any waste, that would be a fantastic thing. We just have to. It feels like we just need to do some research, and we need to, look into it, and we need to figure out how to do it. Because I don't know, like, human beings, I think, are pretty smart, and we can figure things out. Human beings are smart. People are dumb. That's usually what I go by, right? People in large crowds can be very, very stupid, but people in general can be very, very smart, and they can come up with amazing solutions. The fact that we are talking, you're in California, I'm assuming, I'm in Michigan, and we can have a conversation over online, is kind of amazing. Human ingenuity is awesome. And so we just need to tap that, and we need to foster that, and we need to allow people to come up with better solutions than what we have right now, because what we have right now is not working.
Hey, this is only a little bit off topic.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of a show called what is it called? It's dark tourism, dark tourist, something like that.
I don't think so. That name is not coming to mind.
It's something. Wait, chat. I don't think that's the name, but
Dark Matter?
No.
Okay.
Wait. I Dark Tourist. It must have been Dark Tourist or Dark Tourism or something like that.
Okay.
But anyway, in one of the episodes, he travels to some town that was downwind of some nuclear disaster, and everything's irradiated and what have you. Okay. And you see like the remnants of this town, and it's a wasteland now because everyone had to flee. And it's incredible because mathematically, coal, oil, gas, exponentially more destructive than that. We just don't see it. All the harm gets pumped into the atmosphere. So we don't, it's an externality. Whereas all the harm caused by nuclear is very immediate. The harm caused by nuclear is there's a meltdown, which by the way can be prevented with appropriate regulations. Every time there's a nuclear meltdown, it's because something beforehand went wrong, but like preventably wrong. But anyway, it's just interesting. We don't even think about all the harm that fossil fuels do because all of it is distributed and decentralized in a way that makes it less obvious.
Also, into the ocean. I mean, the ocean has absorbed the vast majority of CO2. It could be far worse if we had, less ocean on this planet. We might be already in a scorching, burning hellhole. But thankfully, the ocean has, has its limits. And we're getting to the point where you have coral bleaching and you have ocean acidification. You have the softening of shells of, crabs and stuff like that. And that's a real problem. We're approaching that limit, and we really shouldn't be putting out more, more of that carbon and methane into the atmosphere as greenhouse gases. Dark curiosities, by the way.
On the other hand, the deep sea is terrifying, and our silent war of pollution and climate change against it is a moral and just cause, which will end in our victory.
Fighting the Murlocs and crab people, true.
Have you seen what goes on down there? The little skittery, creepy crawlies down the ocean floor?
I have not, because I would be crushed.
We will prevail.
We just dump a few more old boots and tires into the ocean.
Yeah, I just need a few more BP oil spills, okay? And our conquest will be complete.
True. All right, you want to move on?
Sure, yeah.
All right, let's do some Republican cancel culture, which is always fun. So here's a bit of an ironic story. The party that loves to complain about cancel culture is partaking in it. So now, following the failed second impeachment of trial of Donald Trump over the Capitol insurrection, where even GOP members voted to convict the president, 7 of them, their respective states have decided to censure or even plan to censure those Republicans over their votes. You know, you had people like Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, and, you know, get censured by their own party. And so here's Senator John Thune, right? The Associated Press reports that Thune defended his GOP colleagues who voted to convict Trump in the first interview he's had since he voted to acquit the president, the former president. There's a strong case made. People could come to a different conclusions. If we're going to criticize the media and the left for cancel culture, we can't be doing that ourselves. Jump in.
Cancel culture doesn't mean anything. I don't even know what to say. Cancel culture has completely and utterly ceased to mean anything. Cancel culture for a very brief period in time had a definition, and it was when people within a given community were being impugned for minor deviations, failing a purity test. That was what cancel culture was to me, okay? But nowadays, cancel culture is any consequence, any criticism to any behavior. And in this case, I actually think it's the former. I mean, if we're talking about like censoring people for the legal for their, you know, legally ordained responsibilities as a senator to decide to convict or not, and rather than challenge their arguments, they're just trying to like shame the people who did it. That's pretty pathetic.
I mean, you do have some experience with kitty. I'm immediately distracted by the cute cat.
Well, he'll be here for probably not too long before he wiggles out, so hopefully it won't be too much distraction.
Oh, it's fine. Absolutely fine. So look, I actually do believe there is a cancel culture, and I think that in a lot of cases it can be good, in a lot of cases it can be bad. It can be absolutely weaponized against people, in very negative ways and have negative impacts. And so, you know, it's one of those things where it's like it can serve a purpose, and then it can also be an incredible hindrance. And I think, you know, holding people accountable is absolutely fine for things that they've done and things that they've said, if they still hold on to those beliefs. Where I deviate from like, oh, you know, cancel culture is really like, all right, I think that if you've apologized, I think if you've, you know, like changed your beliefs or whatever, or owned up to it in the past, then you should be uncanceled.
I think. Well, people are very punitive online because people don't have a lot online. In interpersonal friendships, you normally have a solid mutual bond of trust that can weather some minor negative incidents. But online, there's always this suspicion. Anyone you like, anyone you follow, they could turn out to be an absolute piece of shit. So because of that, I think people are really, really willing to drop them at a hat, especially since an unwillingness to drop somebody like that can lead to you being maligned by your own friend group. And at that point, you're kind of displacing the negativity directed against the content creator towards yourself. I don't know how I feel about cancel culture, like conceptually, being used when it comes to political discourse, because in that case, there is an obligation to challenge the things these people do and say. But at the same time, like, I really wish Republicans could appreciate the fact, the undeniable fact, that Republicans are sensitive bitch babies and always have been, and their delusional pretense that they are anything but that has always been, well, it has always prevented them from being able to properly engage with political discourse, you know?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's absolutely true. They are like bitch babies. They cry all the time.
They're bitch babies. Yeah, they complain all the time.
Constantly.
They cry about everything. They are fragile. And they are, and by the way, they are insanely, cynically willing to challenge people or to condemn people or to cancel people based on identity politics, that they will be the first ones to invoke accusations of sexism or accusations of racism if they can get away with it, and they will do so shamelessly, and they know their followers won't give a fuck about it because their followers are in on the buck. Their followers are thinking, ha, now they're giving them a taste of their own medicine.
No, absolutely. I don't think we disagree at all. But it is kind of funny, like as you said, they are complete bitch babies, and they're canceling their own. They're canceling their own senators basically for daring to vote against Donald Trump or to vote to convict Donald Trump so that he doesn't go in and continue to run the party. But I think we can both agree that Donald Trump is the Republican Party at this point. He is the logical, and I call this the logical conclusion of conservative thought. He's where you end up, essentially. Or he's one of the last stages of where you end up before you get to an actual competent fascist, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, I actually wonder. Wait, I actually want your opinion on this. So the common line, and I said this too, was that Donald Trump is a great threat. However, what if the next fascist who comes along isn't a fucking moron? That was my line. But the more I've thought about it, now I think that Donald Trump's stupidity was actually a tremendous aid to him in everything that he tried to say and do. By being so constantly and relentlessly boorish, by being so incompetent, he actually obfuscated the severity of a lot of what he and his party did. And I don't know if the Republican Party is smart enough. It sounds mean, but I don't know if they're smart enough, or at least enough of an appreciator of an intelligence, to find a more savant fascist better than Trump. That might actually be the relevant. Trump might actually be the ideal fascist for that party.
Yeah, it really is. Look, I've often said that the Republican establishment, the Mitch McConnells of the world, they don't know what they're dealing with. I don't think they understand the threat within their own party and the kind of monster that they have created that they now have to square off against. Now they have to try to control Donald Trump because he does have such a gigantic, following within the party. And of course, the reason, we can go through multiple reasons why Trump has such a large following within the party. I tend to think that it's because he allows people to be the worst version of themselves. He encourages that because he himself is that. He is a mirror. He is the Fox News president, right? He's like the average Fox News watcher, only he's just got potentially lots of money and actual power. But the mannerisms and the things that he believes, the things that he feels, allegedly are no different than the average Fox News viewer. And so there's so much in common.
Yeah, well, he is relatable, and he is relatable because whenever I'm acting like a boorish, obstinate child, I think like, oh wow, that was rather Trumpian of me. He's relatable in that respect. People can't relate to Barack Obama. He's an erudite, legal scholar. Like okay, great voice, like great speaker. Don't get me wrong, but nobody's watching Obama and thinking that's so me. I feel like it sounds dumb. I feel like Donald Trump is for the average Republican, like fucking Elsa from Frozen, or like the Let It Go song, or like this is their coming out moment. They feel cucked. They've been cucked by the mainstream establishment for decades and decades. The libtards on Wall Street and Hollywood and both coasts have ruled the country. Something brown people immigration. But now finally, now that everything's gotten this bad, they don't have to care about civility anymore. They don't have to care about anything anymore. They only have to care about power because things have gotten this bad. They have to. They have no choice. So they have no problem with Donald Trump. I don't think they have a problem with any of the obvious corruption he demonstrates because they're thinking, whatever, things got to this point. This needed to happen,
And the Republican establishment itself has always only cared about power. Again, Mitch McConnell knows how to wield power. He's always known how to wield power effectively whenever it falls into his lap. So much so that I think, going on the coupling you were talking about, so much so that it cut, Senate Democrats into, even when they had the power of the minority, the power of the filibuster for at least some time, and now have the power of actually having a slim majority, that they continue to still say, we can't really do anything, man. And yes, I realize that we've got people like Joe Manchin that tend to get in the way, Kristen Sinema, for example, for being, basically centrist Democrats, and who I think tend to, because they're in the position now of being like in the way of getting, they need them. The Democrats need to court, Joe Manchin in order to get anything passed. And Joe Manchin feels super, super important. Like, you're going to have to kiss my ass now. Like, I'm the rare centrist. I'm the blue dog. I'm in the middle now. And you've got to appeal to me. It's that sense of importance. But going back around, because I'm kind of ranting here and like going all over the place. But Mitch McConnell,
he's their Walter White. That's what he is. Everyone who watched Breaking Bad knew that Walter White was a piece of shit, at the very least from episode 4, when he turned down the money from the Gretchen, But even though he's a gigantic piece of shit, they feel some cathartic sympathy to him because they sympathize with his pride and with his downfall, and they sympathize with the underlying emotional justifications for his actions, even if they believe like, okay, yeah, that was obviously too far, this or the other. Okay, that's what he is. Okay, Trump is their John Wick. Okay, and the dog getting killed was when the left put women in politics, and now Donald Trump is the John Wick. Have you seen John Wick? I haven't seen John Wick.
I have not seen John Wick.
I haven't seen John Wick.
All I know is that it's Keanu Reeves being badass. Which, by the way, Keanu Reeves is an awesome person. So,
yeah, I hear he's the Sigma male.
Super nice. What's by the way, I was kind of curious about what the Ligma male is. I've been seeing that around.
Ligma nuts.
Oh, I get it now. Okay.
So that's Ligma male. Sigma male is an actual thing, or well, people are treating it like an actual thing. It's like an alpha male, except you've moved yourself out of the traditional masculine hierarchy structure,
Ah, okay. So you see, I'm old, so you have to explain these things to me. That you youngins with your internet culture, your memes.
Would you say that you are removed from the traditional or the sort of contemporary meme culture then? Maybe you are a Sigma male.
A little bit. Just a little bit though. I try to keep up with the latest memes. Is Doge still a thing? Is that a thing? That's a thing.
Doge started being a new thing, but it's a different type of thing from before. So Doge originally was like, wow, such good, many pats. And now Doge is comics of sheeps and other dogs getting in wacky and uncharacteristic situations with Photoshop. But it's a different type of humor. But that's the new Doge.
Okay. I wasn't actually asking seriously, but
well, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you don't want to get into the epistemology. You don't want to get into the
it's fascinating stuff.
Underlying metaphysical. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Just like I'll spend some time on knowyourmeme.com. It's good resource. All right, so let's talk about some trans rights.
I like that. Yeah, I think trans.
Awesome. So recently there's been a rash of anti-trans legislation being proposed all over the country, with at least 20 states considering legislation that would roll back transgender rights, mostly going after young trans women or trans girls. And now, of course, it turns out that these anti-trans bills are being backed by some pretty big organizations, these hate groups. So let me give an example of a couple of those. Idaho just passed 2 anti-trans laws during the pandemic. One of them, signed by Governor Brad Little, bans transgender people from correcting their gender marker on their birth certificates, and the other bans transgender girls from competing in school sports. In fact, a lot of those bills actively go after trans girls and their participation in sports. And they've got titles like, get this stuff, Vulnerable Child Protection Act and Vulnerable Child Compassion and Protection Act. They added compassion in there. Vaush.
Little girl protection, compassion, mother, father, love, child,
America.
help, heart, save, America, freedom. It's like a fucking tag accumulations done by bots, you know, where they'll tweet out 40 hashtags with everything.
Yeah, this is like old Frank Lunt shit, where he would go and like, okay, so we want to pass this bill that gives, strips poor people of all their money and gives it to rich people, a la Robin Hood style, right? We're just going to come in, we're going to beat you up, and we're going to take your cash out of your wallet and give it to a rich CEO who happens to be outside your door. That's what we're going to do. We're going to call it the Freedom and Compassion, extra, fantastic money act. Okay. And it's going to be the America Fund, the America Money, Growth Act or something like that.
America Funny Growth Big Economy Based Epic 420.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just shit like that. And so that's what they're doing with these trans bills. They, many of them, in addition to attacking trans women in sports, also criminalize doctors who provide gender affirming care, like puberty blockers. I know you've talked a lot about this subject on your show. Or require schools to out trans kids to their parents if they ask to go by certain pronouns. And of course, in a lot of the places where this is happening, where these bills are getting passed or proposed, that could be really, really dangerous for a child in school, because they might have like super religious parents or, anti-LGBT, anti-trans parents and things like that. So that's, and being a teenager who's a trans person, again, I haven't had that experience, but I mean, there's a reason where suicide rates are incredibly high for that demographic.
An interesting statistic that comes out of, I think, the 2020 LGBT. There's a big document name, but the likelihood of a trans youth attempting suicide drops by 15/16 or by about, I think, 94% if you have a supportive parent who accepts your gender identity, blah, blah. Like, you just have to have a supportive parent. That's it.
Right.
15/16. Wow. Sorry, I think that's actually 93% reduction in percentage points. So people always talk about the suicidality of trans people as though it's like an inherent component of their behavior, when it's not. Absolutely not. Obviously, it's a sensitive issue for trans people. If you want to make the argument, trans people care a lot about being gendered properly, then okay, fine, sure. But once you do that, you nearly fix the problem right there. And keep in mind, we're talking about the suicidality of youth. Youth already have a disproportionately high rate of suicidality because of all the dumbass hormone bullshit. So we're talking about an incredible reduction for very, very little,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you have to have a house that's and parents that are supportive. And I mean, okay, so again, having not lived through this, it's still really easy to understand why, young trans women especially, end up committing suicide, because you have such a negative, terrible stigma. And you have, of course, unfortunately, you have a lot of older people, a lot of parents who are doing stuff like this, who are passing these bills, who are making it okay for their peers also to go and attack them and mislabel them and misgender them and dead name them. And all this just is horrible stuff that, of course, destroys the mental health of these young women. And
it's just a really obvious get, right? Like, why are trans people commit suicides? I mean, why are 40%? What could possibly be leading to that? And then you have all this trans bathroom bill bullshit. It's so obvious. And the cruelty, by the way, the cruelty is the point with regards to these things. I've talked about this. I don't actually think any of these Republican legislators personally care really about trans people in bathrooms. I don't think that. But when you center the discourse around cultural issues like this, which can be difficult to talk out to people who are passionate about it, you distract people from issues of real import. Now, I'm not saying that trans issues aren't important. I'm saying that we keep fighting these social battles because they're a proxy for broader institutional change. And as long as the Republican Party can continue to convince their constituencies that they're the only thing standing in between America and BLM burning down the suburbs and men pretending to be women storming into the school bathroom and assaulting their daughters, as long as they're convinced that the Republican Party is that bastion, that wall, that bulwark.
Oh, yeah.
They are not going to pay attention to any of the heinous shit the Republicans do. They'll never need to pay attention to it. Why would they?
No, exactly. And that's an excellent point that you brought up, where you have these Republicans who don't actually give a shit, but they use them as wedge issues because, understandably, like, Republicans don't have plans. They don't have policy, really. Their entire, the entire party really exists as nothing more than a reactionary movement towards against social progress, and really also, as I've mentioned before, a money funneling scheme to rich people, to donors. And let's be honest about that as well. That's 90% of their existence right there. And they use these wedge issues. And it is funny, the timing that this comes out right after Joe Biden becomes president of the United States. It's real weird. And right after Democrats, take over the Senate and the House of Representatives. Oh, now we're worried about bathrooms. It's like the caravans.
Right. And they did it every time with the caravans in 2018. They pushed this narrative that the caravan from the south of the border was going to overwhelm America. Donald Trump used his emergency powers to direct the National Guard there. Nothing ended up happening. You had the trans bathroom bills all throughout like 2017 and 2018, and now it feels like it's being brought up again. And now we're currently dealing with trans women participating in sports, which, and I'll say it again, I've said this a million times, I do think there are some interesting, thought-provoking, and perhaps necessary questions to be answered there with regards to the medical science behind the process. But Republicans don't engage in that process in good faith, not even slightly. They don't care about the science. It's a proxy battle for what they really care about, which is hating trans people. And they only really care about that because that's a proxy for distracting Republican voters from how fucked they're getting by the Republican Party.
Absolutely. So there are some organizations that are behind this push, right? You're not going to be surprised to find out. Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, Eagle Forum, and the Alliance Defending Freedom. Again, with these ridiculous names. I want to call them Orwellian, but I think it's like misusing the term Orwellian at this point.
It's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, but it's the shit that Orwell was warning about, Now
Ministry of Peace, Ministry of Truth, right?
Right.
Being respectively a war department and a propaganda department.
So, okay. I've watched your content before. And so when you mentioned Ministry of Truth, that immediately takes me back to Babylon 5, right? I watch that. I'm a fucking dork. All right, I'm a nerd. I watch all the different sci-fi.
Do you know I'm in Babylon 5?
You are.
Kind of. My father worked as one of the the CGI people, were one of the people who did some of the graphical effects, and that's one of the ship designations was given my birth date.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cute, right?
Yeah. That is awesome.
Because I was born during production. I was born in 1994.
Oh man, you're so young compared to me. I'm only about 10 years older, actually. That's not too bad.
I mean, I feel like we look about the same age.
We do. I'm kind of baby face, so without the beard, I would look worse, much worse, actually.
That's why. Hey, why I keep the beard. Hey, listen, okay, this is our makeup, okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's true, and I feel like it compensates for what's missing over here. You know what I mean? This is one of those things. I'll be honest about it.
Throw it out, wrap it around top.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like Tim Pool with the beanie or anything like that. I just shave it off, just be honest with yourself and admit that you're going bald. It's okay. It's gonna be all right. Guys,
well, it's not a struggle I'll have to go through, I'm afraid. I am very fortunate. Even my great grandfather had hair on his way out,
Well, you actually get it. I think male pattern baldness comes from your mother's line, actually.
It's all directions. I'm very blessed. My fertile hair glands. So I'll compensate in some other way, Maybe I'll end up having a cock and ball cancer,
But it's okay though. It's okay to be bald. It's okay to be short. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Of course. Well, you mentioned Babylon 5. There was a line I always liked from The Next Generation in Star Trek, where it wasn't actually from the show, but somebody said like, "Hey, in 2432, wouldn't they have figured out a cure for
male pattern baldness?"
Baldness by then, right? Of course. And then Patrick Stewart said, "By that time, they won't care." You know,
exactly. I love that.
Right.
I'm familiar with that quote.
It's good. It's good. It's classic, even.
It is absolute classic.
Big Beckon. What's up? Yes, absolutely. Okay. We're being another cat might be delivered soon, so I'm keeping up with it.
Baby kitty. Mine don't actually like come through and you know, like mine usually does spend time in this room, but he's not in here right now, and he's usually like laying down. He only like jumps on me while I'm trying to actually work on the stories, but never does it when I'm filming. It's weird, but appreciate it, I guess.
They all have their own way of expressing love, right?
Absolutely true. But okay, so there was I was talking about the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Yeah, sorry,
right?
I completely derailed. I apologize.
Don't worry about it. No, that's what I love about having these conversations online is that you can do that, and it's like I like having natural conversations with people, you know, and I try not to run my show like super rigid. It's good to do. It's good to have these good conversations, but
if you ever see a stream of mine, you know that rigidity is not exactly a characteristic that I value. Oftentimes, I don't even get to discussing the things that I put up in the stream title, which is fine by me. Whenever I'm planning a stream, you know, I hate it. Planning a stream sucks. Like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know what I'm going to want to talk about the next day. Actually, streaming's fun, though, as long as you can talk about whatever you want. Here, I got another one.
Ah, look at him. Her or them.
Okay, there we go. We have a fleshy cat who hates being held. We'll make it work.
You make it work.
There we go.
Look at that. It's precious. Absolutely precious.
All right, we got her.
So the ADL, right? Alliance Defending Freedom. They're actually believed to be behind last year's Idaho law that banned trans girls from playing sports. And in 2016, they were behind laws in at least 5 states to ban transgender people from using the correct bathroom in public. And so they're behind a lot of these bills. They've also been advocating against LGBTQ people in court, defending the cake shop. You remember the cake shop in Colorado?
Oh, I remember. Wait, what's the full name of the ADL?
It is the Alliance Defending Freedom. I'm sorry, it's the ADF. Sorry.
Okay,
I got that
yeah,
wrong.
there were people in chat of the Anti-Defamation League, and it seems a little out of character for them to engage in that. Yeah.
Sorry, that was my bad. It's one of those things that happens when you stream. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
All right, there we go. The cat fled.
So they also represented 3 cisgender girls in Connecticut who sued their state because they had to compete against 2 black transgender girls at track meets. So apparently, what did they get blown out? Is that what happened? I'm unfamiliar with that case.
No, so we specifically talked about this on stream just a little while ago. But basically, what happened was these 2 trans girls. It was in Connecticut, and they're really good in a track meet, and they got first and second. And the person who later went on to lambast this whole thing, she got in 8th place. But if she had gotten in 6th place, if the trans women had not participated, she would have gotten in 6th place, and that would have been enough for her to have qualified for like the regional championship. The problem is the 2 trans girls who came in first did not win the regional championship, which means that the girl who came in 6th place, well behind those 2, absolutely would have not either. So it's an utterly meaningless issue. But this woman, this girl, has been running up and down conservative media. She'll probably be a Lauren Chen type in a couple of years. Right, running up and down social media, talking about how she was robbed, how she could have won if it weren't for them, how her youthful dreams of athletic performance were squashed by the cruel transgender lobby. She really plays it up. That's the whole thing, basically.
She sounds salty. I think that's.
Oh no, she's mad. She's big mad. She's very
big
mad.
man. No, it really kind of feels like it's just like a cover for her really poor performance. She should have practiced a little bit more. She should have bootstrapped it. Worked a little harder.
Yeah, well, the thing that bothers me too is okay, cancel me if you like. Connecticut actually doesn't require any medical transitioning before trans women are allowed to participate in sports with cis women.
Okay.
I think that could lead to some issues because of, especially later on into puberty, if you've experienced a male puberty, you had a higher androgen sensitivity, and your pituitary gland pumped out hormones that led to a higher degree of athletic performance. And that is a bias, and there is something to talk about there. But that's not what the discussion has been. As always, there's no room for that. Nothing. There's no room for that. Instead, it's transgender people are destroying women's sports. They're corrupting, they're polluting it, and they're actually not even trans women, they're men, and we hate them. And with all of that, with there being no room for discourse, what is this but another pathetic attempt at directing hate against the trans community?
Yeah, I mean, look, they have situations where, they separate things by weight class and things like that. I don't really find that too entirely different if they were to talk about like the nuances of the situation, because, it turns out that unfortunately nuance tends to get lost in these conversations. Republicans are not coming from a good place, so they're not coming from good faith. They're bad faith actors. So, if we actually have good faith people having these discussions and setting these rules and talking about them to make sure that competition, across all genders is all genders and sexual orientations, whatever, is as fair as it can be. I don't have any problem with that, but I do have a problem with these Republicans that continue to not be, as to go back to the beginning of what we said, they don't really even care about these issues. So of course they're not going to use nuance. No, they're going to frame it as transgender people destroying sports, transgender bad, all that stuff bad, and then we've got to ban them to protect the girls.
They did the same thing with gay marriage too.
Right.
Or really with any issue regarding any minority issue where maybe there's some discourse to be had. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'll risk cancellation. Too. On the face of it, there are some people who believe that it's natural for a child to be raised by a man and a woman. Now, that's not a belief that I've held to, but I can understand why some people would intuitively believe that's sort of like how people are supposed to be raised. There's a lot of cultural conditioning that's gone into that. So now we have the research. We know for a fact that that is not a problem at all. There's nothing inherent, nothing intrinsic. You do not need some balance between men and women to raise a kid. And that's not how humans used to be. We used to be raised in tribal communities where the children would be raised by whoever the fuck had the time to raise the children. That was not one man, one woman. That was the tribe collectively. But I can understand why some people may have been concerned to begin with. But as always, that iota, that minuscule crumb of a legitimate concern has been blown up out of proportion into this, well, it was at least, this massive discourse on children being adopted by gay parents. They'll be broken inside. Their brains, their hearts, their minds, they'll be undeveloped. It's child abuse. There's no discussion to be had here.
Right. Again, all nuance tends to be sucked out the window on purpose in order to create a narrative, in order to create, there's a reason that they call these wedge issues. They create a wedge and they make, the two sides pit them against each other while, of course, the people who are making up these wedge issues and trying to divide people have an easier time picking your pocket.
Yeah, well, this is why I want people to get off excuse me, my apologies. This is why I want people to get off the culture war bullshit.
Right.
I want them to get off the culture war bullshit so desperately. There's nothing I want more than for them to get off that particular line, because it destroys political discourse. Nobody even talks about politics anymore. Have you noticed that? Even when you go conservative channels, Ben Shapiro, Crowder, nobody talks about the merits of policies being implemented. Nobody talks about dreams of a better world. Nobody talks about meaningful criticisms to existing institutional structures. All of it is this constant reality TV back and forth about who's bad this day or who's canceled this day. It's rage bait. So what? Gina Carano. Carano or Carano?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Gina Carano. Okay, what were people talking about with Gina Carano? Was it a nuanced conversation on the legitimacy of comparing conservatives in America to Jews in Nazi Germany? Was it a conversation on the populist and potentially anti-Semitic undertones of that one Illuminati comic she posted? No. The discourse is on she's canceled, so now she's going to work on the Ben Shapiro movie. That's it. That's all we get. We have nothing. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I talked about that. The entire discussion is about how it's the woke SJWs. That's who actually canceled Gina Carano. And for me, it was like, no, look, Disney has it has certain expectations for people who work for the company, right? And they sign contracts, and Disney likes to be super squeaky clean. Okay, they don't like when people cause controversy. And so she caused controversy, knowingly did so. And so that's why they didn't even fire her. What they did is they just said, okay, you're just not going to come back. We're not going to sign you on for any more shows.
Yeah,
right?
They didn't re-up the contract. But
exactly.
In a sane world, even in a political world, anyone could have understood that this was the case. Okay? Anybody. Right. If you work for Disney and you freak out like that on social media, yeah, of course, you're an actress. It's your job to be as palatable and neutral to the public eye as possible, because you don't want to bring a negative eye brought to your your projects. That's your job. That's literally part of your job description. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there were stipulations laid out in Disney contracts which specifically prohibit certain types of behavior on social media. I would not be even remotely surprised by that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why is everyone up in arms about this? Why are we're all soy facing over here? Sorry, I mean conservatives, by the way. Right. No left-leaning person would give a fuck about this if it weren't for conservatives losing their mind over it. If Gina had gotten fired and that'd be like, oh, okay. Right. Well, yeah, she flew too close to the sun. They're the one, the free speech cancel culture. But they know this. And by the way, the same thing would have happened if there was an actor who talked about like Antifa, like firebombing police cars or something like that. If that had happened working for Disney, they would have been fired too. But I doubt that lefties would have thrown anywhere near as much of a fit over that as conservatives did over Gina.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the fact that it was rage bait. And look, these same conservatives that are now rallying behind Gina Carano were the same ones that were like, as soon as she was introduced as a character, or her character Cara Dune was introduced, were like, oh, woke SJW shoving a woman down our throat in Star Wars. Same people, total hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think Vadim put out a tweet about that where like the headlines a month ago versus the headlines today,
Brilliant tweet. And an absolute, like great showcase of conservative hypocrisy over this.
But they don't care. They will never care about that. I don't think. They just do what they're told to follow. It's really quite distressing, I'd like to have more faith in people than that which is warranted by the behavior I see from conservatives.
But you also have to understand that conservatives, I think, are especially the ones that are always online. They're kind of like the always online left. There's not a lot of them, but they're really fucking loud.
True, but the really online righties have a lot of institutional backing that we don't. That's
true.
Like Charlie Kirk, for example. You have like Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro. I don't think Ben Shapiro has an official affiliation with the GOP, but like he's almost legitimized to the point where it feels like Charlie Kirk does directly have ties to the GOP. Right. And they engage in the lowest common denominator of political discourse, but they get pumped up. The Democratic Party does nothing for the loud, whiny sycophants on the left. And if only they did, I'm letting it be known, I would be delighted to accept the contract from the DNC. Okay, give me a speaking spot at your next big rally. Okay, I don't know, maybe somebody will like it.
Yeah, look, I think what you do though is you're a master of subversion. I think subvert those centrists, libs into, and that's kind of what I try to do on my show. Is I put out a lot of lib shit. Let's be honest, right? Dunking on Trump, dunking on conservatives. I love it. But also, it's a good way to also introduce lefty concepts. I'll throw like a little thing about worker co-ops. One of my audience members actually asked me to get your opinion on how we could do more democracy in the workplace. So if you want to tackle that, Like, that's an excellent question, but I try to sneak those things in, you know, try to radicalize the centrist libs into coming around to a little bit more of a left worldview.
Well, yeah, that's the pipeline, right? And they've been doing that. They've been doing that even better than we have too, because every conservative channel, you go Crowder, Ben Shapiro, whatever, they kind of dog whistle pretty hard too. You know, you very rarely will you watch like a moderate conservative channel and it's just moderate conservatism, and they never signal at anything more substantial or more severe. That almost never happens. Usually there's something more. There's like an underlying tone of white supremacy or white nationalism or of like more vitriolic transphobia, and that pushes people down to more extreme ends, you know?
Right. And you know, they've dropped the dog, like they used to be dog whistles, but they've turned into human whistles. We can all hear it. We can all see it. I mean, you know, we have video, right, of these, you know, people saying these things for quite some time, and it's obvious. It's out in the open. The masks are off because conservatives don't really believe in masks anyway at this point, in wearing masks. So, you know, they're not trying to hide it because their base is open to it. They all want this. And I don't know how many numerous people, I think we've all pretty much said this. One of the things that they love and can't wait to do, and the thing that they complain about the most is they can't say the N-word. They desperately want to say the N-word. They can't wait. And maybe it's the fact that they don't, you know, that they can't normally say it. That's why they want to say it so bad.
It's the forbidden fruit, okay? It's the forbidden fruit. They've reached out since, you know, since the day they were born. They've been looking for that affirmation. Maybe that'll be the real transracialism, okay? That'll be conservatives will pioneer it so they can find a way to get all their white boys and make it so they can say the N-word without being canceled.
Yeah. Just desperately. It's like they're so thirsty for it. One more. Can you do one more?
Hit me.
All right. Let's do some PS5 stuff. So if you're a video gamer like myself, Vaush, are you a video gamer?
Yeah, you know, I dabble from time to time.
You dabble a little bit of a Among Us here and there.
A little bit of a chungus here and there, yeah.
So, well, if you're a gamer, you might be having a hard time finding a PlayStation 5. You might be wondering why that is. Well, I mean, one of the obvious answers is we're in a pandemic. So production lines have been slowed down, obviously. And, you know, shipping is impacted as well. So there's no doubt that's having and of course, it's a very hot item. It's very, very much in demand. I mean, what you say? I mean, I want a PS5.
Yeah, I would certainly say so.
Yeah, but you know, there seems to be another factor as well.
I want to play Demon's Souls.
One that is being reported on finally, and that's the issue of scalpers. Okay, you know, just people that act as middlemen or middlemen's middlemen that come in and they buy up whatever stock there is that just freshly comes in. They use all sorts of different methods, bots, in order to try to beat people, you know, and to be able to order these, and then they go and they resell it at a substantial markup. I've seen it as high as $1,100, $1,300 for just, you know, for a PS5 with like maybe a crappy game or one of the good games, you know, Miles Morales perhaps, and so it pisses a lot of people off. I'm pissed off. I can't get a PS5. I want a PS5. I tried to get one yesterday, couldn't get one. Kind of irritating, man.
Yeah, I want to play Demon's Souls. Once I play Demon's Souls, I will have played every Soulsborne game, Soulsborne Kiro game, and you know, I've 100%ed all of them so far. I think so. You know, we gotta get through it.
Yeah, you were doing Bloodborne the other day.
Yeah, I'm great at that game. The logic of Bloodborne, the movement, it's just not. Dark Souls is so much more intuitive to me. Even Sekiro is more intuitive to me. There's something about the movement in Bloodborne that just feels unnatural to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm playing it in a console at 30 FPS instead of on my computer at 60. Maybe that means something to my lizard brain. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. I mean, 30 FPS versus. I mostly game myself on computer, but I still want a PS5 for those exclusives, you know?
Yeah.
But these goddamn scalpers are getting in the way. And yet they want us to feel sorry for them for being maligned.
So I have two thoughts on this, okay? On
Sure.
one hand, so I have two thoughts on this. Scalping is basically an inevitable consequence of demand exceeding supply. That as long as more people demand a thing than is available, there's always going to be a market for people to price that up on the scalp end. It's like that's not like, it's not a matter of individuals being morally bad. It's a matter of this is the inevitable consequence of that, unless there's some kind of policy thing that prevents scalping. But even then, good fucking luck preventing scalping.
Right?
Yeah. Good luck legislating that. You know.
Sure.
The real goal here, of course, should be to make sure that the demand is appropriately met with supply. And you also have the fact that if they could get away with it, Sony probably would have priced the initial run of their PS5s at $2,000,
right?
For the people who would want to get it early, even if it cost them a tremendous amount. But the only reason they don't do that is because optically that would look terrible and people would lambast them in the press, so they won't do it. But really, all the scalpers are doing is using the fact that they don't have a reputation that means anything to get away with pricing these closer to the equilibrium supply-demand point. However, that means that they must necessarily adopt themselves the optical hit that Sony would have taken if they had been the one to engage in tiered pricing from the beginning. So if you're scalping, sure, you may be fulfilling an economic market reality, but people are going to call you cunts for it, like they would have called Sony cunts if they had done exactly what you're doing. That's the price. You want to make money scalping, okay, people are going to hate you for it. That is that's as much a natural way of things as the process of scalping itself. So I don't know what the hell they have to complain about. Yet
they're complaining. So let me go to Forbes here, the famously liberal rag Forbes. It's an inside joke. Here's what Jordan, one individual, this is in the UK, obviously, who co-founded a group known as The Lab. He said, there seems to be a lot of bad press on this incredibly valuable industry, and I do not feel that it is justified. All we are acting as is a middleman for limited quantity items. According to Jordan, buying 25 PlayStation 5s and reselling them for about $850 a pop. They put this in euros. So about 700 euros, where the base retail price is about 450 euros or about $500, is no different than a retailer buying milk from a wholesaler at a low price before reselling it at a higher price.
So there's a problem with that. And that's that the retailer is providing a service that scalpers are not. What retailers do is they take all of these wholesale bulk items and they assemble them together in a grocery store that has staff that work there. It keeps them all at an appropriate temperature and it collects them all for simple and centralized use. Whereas the act of buying a PS5 from Sony, and the act of buying a PS5 from a scalper are functionally identical. You aren't providing any additional utility to the consumer. All you're doing is upping the price. I mean, this is just, it's bitch babying. It's baby bitching is what it is. If this is how it works. Chat, you get to see the screen, okay, but Jeff can't because it's the life. Okay, so you have to settle on what you expect as a price, a fair price for a game console, okay? Let's say we settle on 500, which is pretty pricey historically, but game consoles are getting pretty cool, so whatever, we'll set on 500, okay? That's an acceptable, reasonable price. However, initial demand is like not nearly enough to meet supply, not even close, which means that as we follow the supply demand curve, there should be a smaller number of people equal to the existing supply that would be willing to pay for a higher cost to get that product. So those people may be willing to pay more, but Sony can't price it at a higher value because that'll entail an optical hit. So if there is an optical hit associated with that market transaction, what scalpers do is they take the benefit of providing these products and price gauging them, or not price gouging, sorry, and price gating them to that community. and they do so for whatever 800, 1,000, whatever, and that's fantastic. And they also take the optical hit, and that's fair. I don't understand why anyone should have a problem with that. That seems like a right. Like, Jeff, what do you think? Like, doesn't that seem like a natural?
Well, look, being a scalper, you're still being kind of a dick, though. It's still a dick move.
No, that's what I mean. It is. Yeah, sure, it is. Just like it would be a dick move if Sony did it, so they absorbed the hate, you know?
Right, and they should be happy with the hate because they're making money from it.
Yeah. And by the way, there are some people who do this gotcha too, where it's like, they'll say like, oh, well, isn't that the same as buying wholesale from another person and selling at your own store? If that's done in a way where you're not providing additional utility to the consumer, then yeah, in a way that is, it's not scalping, but yeah, you are being destructive. You're not contributing meaningfully to the economic process. You're just making more money. You're a middleman.
A middleman of a middleman.
Right.
That's essentially what it is. Again, adding absolutely no utility to it. And so now, again, they're complaining about it. They're being absolute baby bitches about it. And then they add in that, hey, you know what? You should be nicer to us because sometimes we donate to charity.
Well, that's good for them.
Good. Without any sort of evidence that they actually do that.
Why do they even care? Scalpers don't use their real names, do they?
I don't know. I don't know, actually.
Like what is this like? Is this going to come up when you Google their like resumes in the future? What do they care? Where are they getting this negativity? Like internet comment forums? Like how is this affecting them in any way?
I know, right? They're just incredibly salty because there are numerous articles coming out and saying, "Oh, scalper bad, scalper bad." Well, we're not bad. We're donating to charity. We helped grandma cross the street. Okay, we may have charged her $25, but we helped her cross the street.
Hold on, Vaush. Scalpers do add utility because they ensure that people who may not have been able to get a console to get one. Scalpers don't produce more PS5s. Scalpers, by upping the price, prevent people who may have otherwise been able to get the PS5 at its original price from getting one. You're not making more PS5s. You're just making sure that only the wealthy people can get them. You're not. I mean, you're not increasing the number of people who receive a PS5. You're just profiting off of your ability to ensure that only wealthy people or people who want it more can get it, you know? But even that, it's not necessarily people who want it more, okay? There are tons of people who want a PS5 more than anything else in the world who can't afford to pay a scalper's price. And there are tons of people who are super wealthy and who would be willing to pay a scalper's price, even though they personally don't care that much. Willingness to pay and desire for the item are not necessarily the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And also what they're doing too, and this should be stressed a little bit more, they're using unfair practices in order to do it. They're using, again, bots in back end information from retailers. When they get these PlayStations in, they monitor those. They have their bots go in and be able to order them faster than anyone else can. And so
and in that case, like, wait, the person said again, otherwise it would literally just be up to luck to get a console. Yeah. If 1,000 people want an X item and there's only 100 X item, I think it would be preferable for it to be based on luck rather than a botnet immediately scooping up all of the limited edition items and then reselling them back at 3 times their price. I don't know how that's morally better. I mean, yeah, leave it up to luck. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, well, it's already been about luck. I mean, saying like you could go to your local Meijer or Walmart and be in a line with 6 people and there's only 5 PS5s left. Well, the time that you got there, luck, right? Oh, maybe you hit a stoplight on the way there and it prevented you from being the 5th person in line. Instead, you were the 6th person in line.
Yeah, you could do that logic with anything. What if every time you went to the grocery store, every single item had a bidding war going on, and the fewer items there were, the higher the bidding war trended up? Like, sometimes I think it's okay to just be like, well, I didn't get to the store on time to get X, rather than like seeing like an auctioneer like $1,000 for the ketchup bottle. Like I don't know. You can apply that logic in a lot of ways.
And these people are just being ridiculous middlemen and getting in the way. And just making the situation worse because again you're driving up the price for, again, I know something that is limited in stock, And that's not always going to be the case, but, scarcity and all at this point, but still you're artificially inflating it more than it should be. And it just seems like it's incredibly unfair and very dickish. And to expect then an apology for being called out is just even more ridiculous.
I just don't understand why they're upset. I don't even know. What people are being mean. What did you think you're scalping? What did you think was going to happen? Do you think people would be like happy about it? Of course. There are people who wanted a PS5 and wanted to take a shot at being able to get it at 500, but now they're not going to be able to, and they're mad about it. Like, what do you want? Jesus.
Yeah. One more quote here from, right? Mm-hmm. Both Reagan and Jordan say that they are ultimately helping people by giving them financial opportunities. So apparently they've hired people. They've created a little business around this, okay? They say that they're helping their employees give financial opportunities to resell consoles at their inflated price. I mainly just try and help others now. That's all that really matters to me.
However they like to justify it to themselves.
Wow.
I wish they would just be forthcoming. Like, I saw an economic vacuum that I could make money from, so I did. There you go.
I'm playing capitalism. Call it super capitalism, if you will. I'm playing capitalism, and it works. So you want to get mad at me? Fine, but I'm going to sit there and now jump into my money Scrooge McDuck style with both middle fingers extended. Don't care. I'll do it again. At least be honest.
Well, what are you going to do, right?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's all the stories that I got for y'all.
Yeah, well, we ran through more than I would normally be able to in any given 4-hour stream of mine.
I do appreciate you allowing me to take over your show for an hour and 40 minutes. Much
it was my pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry that it took so long. That's my bad, poor planning.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So, it's funny. I actually hadn't heard of you until one of my friends brought you up. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so I don't know the lefty YouTube sphere, so that's my problem, okay? I'm like disconnected boomerish sometimes from like what's going on in the online leftosphere.
Yeah, like a Sigma male.
You're right. And so like my friends will come to me, my bestie Tiffany, like my audience, Tiffany, right? She's kind of awesome. And so she's like, hey, check out this Vaush guy, right? He makes some pretty solid points. I was like, all right, whatever. I watch other creators and I try to support other creators where I can, right? So, I go and I go into the surfs on Twitch, and I'll throw them some, subs, and I'll help them out that way, and I'll go and do promotion, and I'll do that for other lefty channels, because I feel like I'm doing my part to try to create a lefty community, right? And so
yeah, absolutely.
And so Tiffany, she's a small time streamer as well. She's just like getting started. And so she, introduced me to your content. I was like, hey, it'd be great to get this guy on and have a conversation and talk about some of these different topics and dunk on fashion and whatever, and pick your brain, because that's what I love to do. I love to go and pick people's brains. I love these conversations.
My primary limitation is that I am virulently antisocial. Now, that too, but also antisocial.
I'm an introvert.
My willingness to engage with other people is definitely a temporal thing,
Well, I also think that you might have had bad bad experiences with some people as well, from what I've seen of your content.
Well, maybe.
A couple come to mind.
Maybe, possibly, perhaps. I do appreciate you coming on, seriously. Would you mind throwing out your socials to everyone listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got Twitter at Jeff's Politics. It's where I shitpost mainly. I shitpost a lot on your account. I shitpost on my my Twitter account doesn't really reflect what I do here, because I'm just constantly shitposting people. That's what Twitter's for. That's why I have like 8,000 followers. But follow me anyway. I'm also on YouTube. I'm on Twitch. YouTube.com/Waldorf Nation. That's where I do the show. We're trying to get to 200,000 subs. We're like 161,000 now. So it's a slow burn.
Getting up there.
Twitch. What's that?
Getting up there.
Oh yeah. Well, not like you. You're like a rocket.
No.
Like Jesus.
I was
dude.
for a little while. Maybe again. We'll see.
It's good shit though. And so on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jeff_Waldorf. Again, I do a lot of shit posting, but I also try to help the lefty channels there. So I need more follows and I need more people to follow on Twitch as well, so I can rate in, do all that stuff. And then, I got a Facebook page, facebook.com/ Waldorf Nation, I think. Or Jeff Waldorf Show. Something like that. I don't know. You'll find it.
Something in that ballpark.
I got a few of them. So that's basically it. So if you want to follow me for, some decent lefty content and dunking on, conservatives, that's you can do that. I much appreciate it. Please subscribe.
Thank you, Jeff. And I appreciate you coming on. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. We should play some Among Us sometime.
Yeah, we used to have games going on that. I've been trying. I'll admit, Among Us is somewhat fun. I've been trying to play Phasmophobia lately. That's been fun.
Yeah. Hey, I'm up for any type of games.
I'll give it a mind. Thank you.
And I can
have a wonderful
bring
day,
some
okay?
friends too. You too, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
You have a good one. All right, everybody. That was longer than I thought it would be. That was a fun conversation. Much appreciated to everybody who tuned in to watch. Let me read some super chats before we go, and get here on Twitch as well. I want to also thank Vaush's audience as well for being so warm and receptive. Although I didn't read the comments because I wasn't able to, but I assume that you were all super, super nice and very, very welcoming to me. So I do appreciate that. Let's see. This conversation was normal. I'm a fairly normal guy. Just what it, what is it? It's one of those things where I'm just a normal person that does normal things. Let's see. A lot of follows. Temples 25, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Much appreciated. Let's see. Original Nano Dragon, that was yesterday. So let's go here. Thank you for the bits as well. Alio Sure, much appreciated for that. It's incredibly kind. Let's go here to the YouTubes. What a dope collab. There's some real ones right here. Thank you, Zachary Flute. Much appreciated to you as well for that. Joe Shalom. Vaush, will you try to debate Ben Shapiro? I think he would if he wanted. If Ben Shapiro would. I think Ben Shapiro is too much of a bitch. I don't think Ben Shapiro would do that. Say hello to Vaush for me. I think I did. Scotty Johnson. Yes, Jeff and Vaush in the same stream. Yeah, a lot of fun. Again, much appreciation to him as well for doing this, for spending his time. And that's it. We're going to go. I'm going to go. Got to edit all this stuff down. But much appreciation to all of you. Thank you so much. And we will see you all on Monday. Have an excellent weekend. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you all tomorrow.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.